Reynad replied about the Q&A yesterday. He readdressed a lot of his points and he actually made way better replies this time, I think, than last time, like more nuanced, and he explained himself why he explained certain things the way he did yesterday. So I also did my research. I heard the feedback this time. I went through it. I pre-watched it all. I made points, so we can just skip ahead to that because Reynad also replied to me directly. He apparently watched a portion of me doing or reviewing the Q&A, and he also answered one of my questions live on stream. I was lucky enough to catch it this time. So there's a lot here. I'm gonna go into it, and I think you'll be more satisfied this time with the answers that he gives, and I think they're a lot better. They're pretty good. So first, let me go to the intro, which is explaining why he's doing another Q&A, because this was unannounced. This was not something that was expected. We didn't see anywhere, but he just jumped on stream, and this is why.
I don't know. I didn't really. I watched like parts of the Q&A, a couple questions I answered. I don't really like the. I feel like I gave a long-winded, like, condescending answer instead of like the short, to the point one for a couple of them. So yeah, I don't know. I figured I'd answer more questions if people had them, or go live for.
So he basically felt like he didn't answer them properly either. This was the biggest feedback from me, from people on Reddit or Discord. People didn't really like his tone or the way he answered some of those questions, which he seems to recognize, so he wants to redo some of them. That is one of the reasons, and this is more at the end of the stream when I came in, and he replies to me directly when he saw my review of the Q&A, which I'll also address.
Also, Ben, I saw you watching the Q&A video. It was pretty insulting that you lied to your chat about me not playing the game. I would encourage you to listen to my full sentence there. You'd get like 2 words in and then pause me, and then let me say 2 more words and pause me, and like, oh my god, he said he doesn't play the game. I do play the game.
Yeah, and that's definitely a Content Creator thing, because I think of stuff, I want to immediately put it out. I want to create content, right? Instead of just watch the whole spiel, which would be hours and hours. And I did let it like him play out the whole sentence. At the end, he does say that he plays on like a different server, which I included. But yeah, the fact that he didn't play it on live servers, the way that he worded it, definitely made it seem like he doesn't play the game much at all, and he based a lot of decisions on other reasoning, and apparently, okay, that's not true, that's wrong, I got that wrong. I'll try and pause less. That's why I did this video different. I pre-watched the whole thing, I know what he's gonna say, and I made my points. So hopefully, Reynad, I redeem myself here. I got that comment as well that I paused too much, but I know I'm not a react streamer, I'm a gamer. I try to give reactions, and I try to do my best to interpret stuff. I will get things wrong, and I am learning along the way as well. Although I don't think I misinterpreted anything. I rewatched the VOD from yesterday, and everything he said, I think I interpreted correctly still. This is one of the things maybe that I interpreted wrong. I thought he just played sometimes on the test servers. Yes, that's not true. Now we know. I don't think he's talking about anything else in particular, because I think the other points I addressed properly. Anyway, on to the first topic, where he talks about forcing. So the fact that a lot of people think, including myself, forcing is possible, especially at higher ranks. If you want to win a lot, you gotta force the game, you gotta force the strongest builds, and it's very consistent. So this is his first reply. It consists of like 3 different replies.
So yeah, basically, I think the word force is people like fishing for like an attack vector, you know. It's like, or it's like it's a way to like. Also,
I'm not including everything. Like, this statement was like so long. I'm just including the interesting parts. Again, if you want to watch the full thing yourself, you can do so. But I'm gonna just try and condense it for content purposes.
It's the kind of complaint that can't be dismissed, and the root cause is inconsistent. It's like you can't actually solve the problem, because like it's just like a framing inside the head of the person calling forcing, and so you can't. Yeah, I don't think it's indicative of a design flaw. Basically, it's like this inevitable thing as long as you can name an archetype. People like.
So basically his argument here is that forcing will always be a thing because it's the framing. People will always call something forcing. Because archetypes, saying you play or you try to play burn dually or poison this or that, could be seen as forcing. But I guess we can define forcing. If we just put a definition on it, then we can label it, and then we can say if the game has it or not. And how I would label forcing, and a lot of the top ranked players, is there's one specific thing, like an item. In this case, it will be the raise, the dually raise, that are too easy and consistent to get. And so every time, every game, you're rolling for specific key items that make you super strong and give you super high EV plays, meaning on average, you're gonna score way more than picking any other items or playing any other game. So that is what I would define as forcing, not an archetype or a general build or a direction. No, specific items that are so broken that their average win rate is so much higher that the best play that you can make every single game is looking for those items, because that's very possible and very easy right now because it's closed beta and there's a limited item pool. That's how I would define forcing, and by that definition, currently that is possible. He says it's not indicative of a design flaw. All of this is up for debate, but this was basically a statement on it. But it's not all of it. There's an next point.
So yeah, I don't know. If when what the word forcing implies is, like, at the onset of the game, I'm committed to drafting a certain thing no matter what shows up, and I'm gonna force that thing. I don't think this kind of forcing exists in our game. That's how I define forcing.
And the issue is that it definitely does right now. He says in the game, I think he's always, when he's referring to the game, he's thinking big picture. He's thinking like months from now or years from now when the game has all the items. And then sure, we will see, right? I think indeed forcing will not be as big as a thing, maybe not at all. But right now, at this specific moment, the answer is yes to this. So I just have to disagree with this point for now.
I don't think it's a competitive strategy.
And it is the most competitive strategy. Most hiring players, as I discussed in the last video as well, most hiring players just forced when something was broken consistently, and then they stopped playing once you got patched, and now they're camping their rank because there's no, as long as the high EV play is not consistent, they're not playing, if that makes sense.
I think there's, like, on a patch, especially on the early ones, you can find like a build or two to get a pretty consistent win rate, but like in the long run, it's as the player base gets better, it's just not gonna play out that way. As more content gets added, it's gonna be harder and harder to find that.
So he is talking about the long run mainly in the statements, I assume.
I think my guess how it'll go down is a lot like constructed TCGs. Actually, it's kind of interesting if you're deck building in those games. Like you can.
I'm gonna skip this. He's just comparing it to other games, but a little bit further down the line, he's talking about it more again.
Like something's really strong immediately. Like let's say this last patch was the last patch we ever did.
He's giving an example now.
Right. Something's really strong, like Monitor Lizard, and it's really consistent. It's still weak to stuff. It's Poison still has its issues. There's a lot of like one-shot strategies, and I don't know, it doesn't match up favorably against everything, right? There's a lot of pig builds that are good against it. So what would happen is everyone's forcing the Monitor Lizard thing in theory, which they're not doing, but let's say even if they were doing that, then like the person that's forcing the one thing that beats the Monitor Lizard becomes the highest ranked player. It's like it's just positioned well against like the most popular deck, and so it basically ends up being a bunch of like predator-prey relationships with different matchups. And if one thing becomes overrepresented, it should sort of self-correct, because players are incentivized to play the thing that beats the popular thing.
So this is the theory, right? That things self-correct because if something is popular, you just play the counter. Now the issue with this right now, that I think I also discussed yesterday, but again, the video is 2 hours long, is the fact that right now the higher EV play, or the most consistent play, is still forcing the broken thing and not the counter. Simply because the broken thing, first of all, is so strong and so simple and easy to get every single game consistently, that on average, if you play, let's say, 10 games forcing a broken thing and 10 games forcing the thing that counts the broken thing, you win more with the broken thing because it's easier, it's just super strong, and you get the wins. Even against the counter, you can win if you giga high roll. The counter needs way more pieces. Like for Monitor Lizard specifically, it's like one-shot builds. Like High Burst on Vanessa has been nerfed a lot. It would be Burn mainly that you try and play then, or you play a pig one-shot, which also you need a lot of speed then to go off quickly, because dualies also gain armor. I mean, I'm trying to give specific examples here. You could also do armor force field one-shots, on dually, but again, that needs a lot of good skills to work. So all of the counter builds need to high roll a lot more pieces, are harder to set up. And if you don't face Monitor Lizard, which is your preferred matchup, but you face a different matchup, suddenly you're like, the matchup that you're best against, you're not that good against anymore. You might still have a strong build, you might still win, but on average, your win rate is gonna still end up lower. So right now, that is the issue with the game right now. The self-correcting doesn't work simply because the forcing of one build is too consistent and too easy, and does not outweigh it to play the counter right now, because on average, you're gonna run into more problems and are gonna climb less consistently. But in theory, I think in the long run, if things are a bit more balanced, that's why balancing is really important, especially with the outliers. I think that works and that holds stake. But that is my main input that I would give to this like statement. It talks, again, this is a long statement. I know I'm skipping parts of it, but I don't want this video to be too long. You could watch all of it. These are, I think, the most important things that I want to highlight and give feedback on. Next thing is card packs. So a lot of people are like confused about what card packs are. There's a lot of misinformation. A lot of people assuming this is a card pack, this is how they monetize the game. I'm gonna talk a little bit about it very shortly, so we know what we can expect.
How are card packs going to work? I don't know if we'll call them packs. We'll call them expansions. That's what they are. But yeah, basically, when you get a hero, you get 100 cards. Like, that's how it works right now. There's 100 core cards for every hero. And then when you get an expansion, there'll all be like 10 extra cards that just get added to the pool. So that's the idea.
Very simple, very straightforward. Next up, he's talking about balance. Now, throughout this stream and the next stream, he streams twice, there is a lot of nuanced talk about balance and like specific decisions and how they go about stuff. I'm not going to deep dive into all of it, just the more important things. One of them is these, or like also things that he addressed yesterday and that I addressed.
And so like here, I guess I sounded very dismissive of the balance complaints yesterday.
Because it was mainly talking about balancing is fine, things are going to be broken, you guys are wrong. That is somewhat how people perceived it.
And I don't think I did a very good job of explaining why it's a bad thing to prioritize, in my opinion. It's because there is no destination, so it's never like done. You're never like mission accomplished with balance. It's just like perpetually unfinished. And if you focus on it, man, I lost my train of thought.
I do like that he is like analyzing himself in his own replies, and I also prefer him doing this, like saying that he lost his train of thought and go back into a better statement instead of trying to have finished something. Well. So
like basically, there's always new stuff coming into the game. There's the skill pass we're gonna do. There's the monster pass we're gonna do. Let's say we did prioritize balance. Let's imagine we did that. We prioritized it above other stuff. And we dialed in the numbers for like how this patch is gonna feel like this week. And it felt like really good, and the iteration time we had was spent polishing that play experience that it's gonna be for that week, right? Then like the monster pass comes in, or the skill pass comes in, and all this stuff changes because some new stuff got added, right? And so all of that balance work gets sort of thrown out of whack. That's kind of the issue with it. It's like it's this like crystallization thing that happens at the end, balance. And then if you change other stuff afterwards, it sort of undoes all the balance work. You're starting from scratch on that.
So essentially what he's all about is that even if he puts more time into balancing, small changes later down the line might just undo all of the work and they have to rebalance everything. So it's just more effort that is not going to last long term. I still think it's worth to put in a bit more effort in that regard, even though if it's going to get undone, it will have to rebalance later down the line simply for the health of the game. But that's why he's doing balancing like he does right now, and he's prioritizing other things. And in the closed beta, that's definitely fine to prioritize the features and all the other stuff over the balancing. But long-term health for the game, things are always going to be kind of broken simply because by that logic, every time a new patch happens, things will be broken anyway. You have to rebalance. Then the game will never be in a state where it feels very good, right? If it's always just gonna be kind of thrown in whack anyway. But I feel like there has to be some nice middle ground as well. But that's basically his reasoning.
Because you just changed so many pieces, and so And so yeah, it's kind of like this ongoing thing that like you definitely don't want it to get so out of hand that it's unfun, that it's creating problems, but you also like don't want to prioritize something that like you just can't win. It's like this, it's in it.
Yeah, it's a careful balance, but at least it's good that he doesn't want the game to be unfun because the balancing is so out of whack. That's, I think, the main priority. Still keep the game fun enough, but providing enough balancing. But yeah, things are gonna change that much and that quickly. I understand why priorities are shifted a bit, but still. Next up is tournaments. So what tournaments for this game would be, and esports, he mentions it.
Do you expect the tournaments to all be community made? Yeah, mostly community made. Yeah, I mean, we might host something at some point, but yeah, we're looking for ways to support the community mostly. So, like, we're ready to go. Like, I'll cover a prize pool. We'll get like, I'll stream it. If you guys want to host something, we're all for it. I've been talking to some websites and stuff too that could help us like make a hub for it maybe, and everyone could just go there and we could have like regularly ongoing tournaments. But there's some questions about it. How do you score it? We don't have like lobby matchmaking yet, so there's.
Essentially, he wants to provide the features and he wants to support it, but Tempo themselves are not going to be the ones putting up tournaments or like providing all of the, or like, yeah, setting them up basically and hosting them. But he's down to provide prize pool, he's down to help out in whichever ways they can. So I think that's a fine way to look at it. Next up, monetization. So he did not want to talk about monetization. That was probably one of his worst answers as well in the last stream, I think, the way that he does not want to discuss it. He did talk about it now. Surprise, surprise. Here's what he had to say when people asked him about monetization of the game.
Can you explain the monetization strategy? Yes. We are going to have 1 billion players. And if you have 1 billion players doing something, it will indeed make money. One sec, let me...
That's his response. It's kind of a joke. I think it's funny the way he shrugs it off, because he doesn't talk about monetization throughout any of these streams. And I think that's better. It's better to just not bring it up then, if you don't want to discuss it, instead of give that vague answer saying you don't want to have the conversation, right? And have it then with the right people. So I think this is a funny response. That kind of addresses it for the most part. They're gonna make money. Just, you'll see. Next up is feedback, because he's like, we heard his answer yesterday where feedback, he doesn't really like it came across like he didn't care about a lot of feedback, because it's usually wrong anyway, and he does things the way he thinks is proper with his team, but he gave again a more nuanced and I think better response in the stream.
How do you like to get feedback? I don't. I'm a sensitive diva.
It's a bit of a joke, but it's kind of like a self-reflection joke, because he doesn't like receiving bad feedback, obviously.
The truer it is, the more offended I'll be.
But he gives an actual response.
No, I don't know. I like feedback. I don't know. I read through the pain, I guess. And just bark it at me like everyone else, I'm open to feedback. I don't know. I'm not always gonna take it, but I always like hearing it,
So I like transparency. He likes hearing it, but he's just not always gonna take it, which is completely fine. I don't know if he goes on about this. I don't think so.
Like, the way you're feeling is always accurate, And sometimes I make wrong assumptions on like how it'll play out in practice. Well,
So I think that was a way better answer. I do like that. And then community, again, about community, he was pretty, seemed to have a pessimistic view about it. But this is how he replied to it this time. Now, I will say the comments I've been getting on like my video from yesterday, some of them are so bad. I kind of understand why he wants to distance himself from reading Reddit and like other community posts and things like that, because people are vile, man. Some people that write comments, I wish I could see you in real life in front of me to kind of know what kind of person you are, because you have like the stuff you say is so unhinged and so attacking people for literally no reason. You cannot have a discussion. It's almost not worth talking to you, because I think you're a 12-year-old. That's basically how some of it comes across, some of it, right? But that is probably the reasoning or why he wants to save his mental health and not read that sort of stuff. And again, as a content creator, you also get those messages, so I kind of understand it from that viewpoint. But I still like reading comments simply because there's good ones and there's feedback as well, and it's still worth engaging with, you know.
Is there a plan to include community-made cosmetics? I would love to do that. I would love to include community-made everything. You know, this is actually one of the things I really didn't like about the tone I had in that Q&A yesterday. It was really like, oh, fuck you guys, I know better kind of thing. And that wasn't the message I wanted to send. I think design-wise, that might be how I feel, if I'm being honest. But there's a ton of user-generated content that I think is just like better than what the studio could make. I think like the community is a great source for custom cards, events, monster designs. You guys are actually pretty good at like design brainstorming. And so I forgot the question I was answering.
He basically wants to include community still in a lot of different things that he thinks they're good at stuff, but when it comes to design stuff, he has made up his own mind. Now about progression and unranked. So people really didn't like how unranked feels like right now, very unrewarding. The 10 wins only giving you something feels bad. And he kind of touched on it. There's 2 replies here that I have about the systems that might make it better. Because he said that's just the way it is. Don't play my game if you don't like that, right? The game should be fun by itself.
Basically. You know, it's a proper beta kind of thing, but yeah, I think the progression system, once that's in, will make playing feel a lot better. You won't just like get stuff for going 10 wins, you know, you'll always be making progress.
So that's the key part here. You won't just get stuff for 10 wins, you will always be making progress. So there will be other progression systems that make it rewarding to play unrated, even if you get a worse run like 9 wins, right?
And then, yeah, it'll just gradually improve, you know, more stuff will come in throughout all of next year.
So I think the main issue is in this closed beta, a lot of features are lacking and people are taking it like this is a finished product and this is how it is, this feels bad, which probably right now is valid. A lot of people probably feel bad playing it right now, which is true. But in the long term, I guess most of it will get addressed. He also had this reply.
I think you mentioned earlier, will there be some progression or reward for unranked games? Yeah, definitely. That's what the Battle Pass will help do a lot. And challenges and... Yeah, you guys will have all sorts of progression, so you won't have to...
So he is talking about a little bit of monetization now. Battle Pass is going to be a thing that is going to help with the progression. There's going to be a free version, I assume. And I think it's a very good way to also monetize the game.
Just get 10 wins to get stuff. I have to be able to win chests too, after all.
That's it. Now, next up is meta forcing. I know we talked about forcing at the start of this video, but there's a little bit more of a different take here that I wanted to include. Mainly about the meta and how the game plays.
The only thing that kills it is meta min-maxing, only a couple comps being viable. Yeah, like I said though, that stops being possible once the card pool's big enough, right? So it's...
So one thing I do like is he did see some of my review to the Q&A. A lot of these answers seem like they are kind of like similar things to what I mentioned. Like, for example, all of the problems I said will probably be fixed once there's more cards, more heroes. It's now his reply as well, which wasn't necessarily his like reply yesterday. I mean, he still thinks forcing is not a thing in the game, but now he explains why he doesn't think that way.
How big of a card pool did you need for the game to be fun?
Which is also similar to how I think.
You know, to go live. I think 3 heroes is like the bare minimum, like it's enough. 2 heroes we could have done, I guess, but...
So basically he is thinking long term as well with his answers, and he thinks that meta forcing, if they add more cards, will be harder, but right now it is still very possible. Next up is skill-based matchmaking. I don't think he talked about this yesterday, but basically right now, I think I talked about it though. A rank 1 player can be matched against someone who plays for their first time and is the worst player in the game. That interaction is possible. There's no skill-based matchmaking. You can face anyone. And he is gonna explain his reasoning why this is in the game, why he thinks it's better than skill-based matchmaking. This is, I think, a little bit of a longer segment, but it's worth listening to because I think he explains it pretty well.
Any thoughts on skill-based matchmaking? Is that a planned thing, or do you like the current state of being able to face any ghosts?
Also, there is some noise in the background, I know. I can't do anything about that. And also with skill-based matchmaking, I definitely think it should be a thing, or at least I thought, but the way he reasons it here makes me kind of second guess it, and I feel like there should still be to some degree be skill-based matchmaking, but maybe not like other games do it.
I want the Bazaar to be a game for everyone, and it's really hard to make a game mode that caters to everyone when there's so many different types of players with different goals. And so for the competitive-minded PvP player, I like the matchmaking working the way it does now. I think for our competitive mode, that's the best way of doing it, and I'll get into why in a second. For a casual mode, for players that want to explore our world and just have a cool sandbox to like build cool stuff in, I think like a single player PvE mode would be the best place for that.
So one thing I'll say, I'll kind of break down what he says in this entire segment, but he sees the game like ranked as just one small thing of the game. He sees unrated, he sees other PvE stuff, other content they're gonna add. Ranked is like the main thing that's being played right now, but at the end of the day, that's not going to be the main thing. So if you're a new player, you don't want to face like really good builds, there's a lot of other options for you that will allow you to have that fun. That's one of the reasons.
And then we could get really liberal with the effects we put into that mode. You know, you can do some crazy stuff in single player, balance wise. And so I think that would create like the best of both worlds. But I worry that trying to do something like skill-based matchmaking for our competitive mode is misguided, and I think it's misguided basically in every game that does it. And it took me a while to really...
I don't think I agree with that. Like, for example, he's mainly talking about like other strategy or card games, I think, because if you do it in a shooter, that's going to be terrible. Imagine you're playing Valorant or Overwatch or whatever, and you're facing people from the highest ranks. They literally shit on you. Like, you have no chance, you have no fun, you can never play the game. Even if there's just one player that's like a couple ranks ahead of you, they're usually so much better. It destroys all the fun in the game, which is why smurfing is such a big deal and such an annoying thing in those games. So skills-based matchmaking definitely has a lot of good implementations and is good for certain games. Now for strategy games, that's a different argument. So when he says for pretty much every game, I would assume he means pretty much every game, but maybe he means a niche of gaming, right?
Like here's the thing. I think what the flow should be is like you download the Bazaar for the first time and you play single player, and you play the tutorial in single player, and you play, you know, runs in single player, and maybe you stay there forever. Maybe the Slay the Spire grinder stays there forever.
One issue is that he has assumptions on how people will play the game, what the flow should be, but that is not really gonna be true in the end, right? Everyone has their own preferred things. I would never play the PvE. I would instantly go into ranked. So he has a way that it should be, or how he thinks it will be, and that's the way that's what guides a lot of the thought process as well, which might be misguided, but.
And then eventually, if you want to venture forth and try something more bold, you can fight other players. And so, for the people that have chosen to do that, they've ventured into PvP. I don't know that we need to like coddle them with skill-based matchmaking. You know, I don't know that the weakest players on all the way on the left of the bell curve, I don't know that, like, because they opted into that, even for them, I don't know that I'd want to help them with matchmaking.
So it seems more like it's a decision on the player to go into ranked and get it thrown into the pit, basically, where you're gonna fight to the death. Which I think, like, the way he is gonna explain this, I think that is actually an interesting way to do a game. So ranked system, he, like, for most games, it's the core game mode. He does not really want that. He wants it to be like the pit, where if you go there, you should be ready for some hard, tough matchups. If you're not good enough, go practice in unrated, basically, right? Or get better at the game. Skill issue, basically. And there's an argument he has for top-ranked players here as well. Now, for top-ranked players, that was my main argument, is why they should have skill-based matchmaking. For new players and top-ranked players, the edges of the bell curve, like he said. Because if you're a new player, it feels terrible to play and go up against top-ranked players. But like you said, just go get better or play unrated or PvE, which I think is a fine response, but some people only want to play ranked. That's the issue. Then they should probably, they don't get an easier time. And the top ranked players, my issue was that they will just farm everyone. If you're top 1%, your win rate is going to be so high, every game will just be a stomp, right? But the way that MMR systems can work, the rank system currently is broken, but it could be that, of course, you need more and more wins in order to climb. If you're top 5, you need like perfect flawless games maybe to only climb. So even just one loss against a player that's a bit better, or a new player that high rolled or whatever, like mistakes are going to be way more punished. So there is still a way that high ranked players will have a challenge even if they face a lot of easier players. But there's another really interesting aspect. I know I'm pausing him a lot now while he's explaining, but again, I want to break this down and give my thought process. I'm going to let him finish.
There's a bunch of issues with skill-based matchmaking that I don't like. The biggest one is just your win rate doesn't improve when you improve. I think this is a big issue.
This is interesting. But I don't know if it's necessarily true, because in other games with skill-based matchmaking, your win rate does improve. That's the only way you climb. If you have 50-50 win rate, you don't climb. So you do get a higher win rate than people in your skill tier if you improve. So that is not necessarily true. It's once you're stuck at a rank, you match with people with your same rank, you'll be at 50-50. Your win rate will not improve. But that should theoretically be the same if it's non-skill-based matchmaking, right? Because that's the same way you climb. So I don't know if that holds too much stake, but it is true that if you're very good at the game and you're low rank, your win rate is still going to be abnormally high, but that should always be the case.
There are certain... So it has a lot to do with the kind of game the Bazaar is. The Bazaar is a strategy game, a pure strategy game, where there is no mechanical input. The only thing that weighs on your success is your decision making.
Yeah, it's not a shooter.
And so...
basically.
And luck, to some extent, right? But most of your decision making, and knowledge gets rewarded in a game like this. Like, a lot of the fun is learning it, you know? And as people go on that journey of improving and learning the game, I want their win rate to go up. Like, I want... Just like in a roguelike that's really hard, like you get crushed over and over, but then as you get better, you're making it further in, you know? And so the idea is that these other players are basically just hard roguelike bosses, and you're feeling that sense of personal progression as you improve as a player.
So one thing is, playing ranked will never get easier or harder. It will always stay the same baseline because you're facing players from any rank. So on average, every ranked run will feel the same difficulty, is what I'm getting from this. Unless people over time, of course, get better and better at the game and the whole ranked pool improves, right? But yeah, it is definitely different than just a more mechanical game.
Of course, this means, like, you know, a lot of the players don't win that much, and not everyone wants to improve, and those players will churn out, likely, from that mode at least. Which I think is fine. I don't think that the mode needs to accommodate every type of player. But yeah, the mode that you guys are playing right now, that game mode, I feel like no skill-based matchmaking is always going to be the best way to do it. The other big advantage is when you think about content creation, matchmaking this way lets rare and win sometimes. Like,
crazy.
Like, basically, I've seen this mostly with shooters. You'll have a game like Warzone or something drop with no skill-based matchmaking, or Fortnite or whatever, and then later on they add it, and all the streamers complain all of a sudden because they can't pub stomp anymore. And I actually think this is a very big deal. The thing about being a streamer is that you just naturally put more hours into the game than other people. It's your job. And so any content creator for the Bazaar, because they're playing it full time, should be on the right side of the bell curve. And so matchmaking this way, incidentally, makes all your content creators look like gods.
Which I appreciate.
Which I think is good.
So that's one thing. People who are very good at the game will have a lot of a better time, will make better content, so it's better marketing. Basically, people who are good at the game will have a really good time playing the game. People who are average on the game, I think they'll still enjoy the progression part and like getting good at the game. And people who are bad at the game, they'll probably go to PvE. And but then you get the weird effect where if all the people who are not good at PvP or at ranked and they leave, they go play the other modes, right? Because that's more rewarding for them. Then those are out of the pool of the ranked system, and then the top ranked players are just going to face medium players and other top ranked players, so the average difficulty of rank goes up. And if the average difficulty of rank goes up, low ranked players really don't want to try ranked because it feels even worse. People on average are even stronger. So I'm worried of this effect that it will give to ranked, where the average boards you're going to face are going to get more crazy and crazy over time, and people will get more either like really into ranked or just completely out of it. But maybe that's what he wants to cultivate. He wants ranked to actually just be this battleground for people who are really good at the game, right? And one thing he also is going to mention, I'm not going to like play all of it. One thing he mentions is everyone gets a free ranked ticket every day. So every day there's fresh meat, right? That's how he puts it. There's like new players anyway playing ranked because they have the free ticket. So there will always be easier boards to face. If they want to go ranked. I mean, you get chests for it, so why not? They should try it. So that is his philosophy behind not having skill-based matchmaking, and that makes me second guess it. Like, I always thought skill-based matchmaking would 100% be the thing, but if you do it like with the more system that if you're high ranked, you need more wins in order to climb, you need on average to perform better, which usually is the thing, it's already the thing, then that will kind of self-correct. And I'm just worried for newer players who are competitive, what is their position, right? If you're not good at the game but you are competitive of heart, I guess you have to go train or look up guides or things like that. And yeah, content creators are going to do great. So that is me. Thank you, Reynad. I will have a good time. Now there's one more that I want to show, and that's where he answers my question. I asked about social features and tournaments. He's gonna read it.
You mentioned adding social features and stuff to facilitate tournaments. What would this look like? A lobby with a timer every round, etc.?
So
yeah, we're exploring those options.
Back by Battles did that recently. They have a lobby with a timer. You can matchmake with people. So the main thing, because it's an asynchronous game, and those are usually the toughest to make esports for, and more competitive like 1v1 fights, because it doesn't have a timer. You have infinite time, and you get matched to a random ghost. So I was wondering what features they will implement, how they will do that sort of stuff.
You could do it that way. You could do it all sorts of ways.
But that's basically his answer. He says there's a lot of ways you can do it. We don't know yet. We could do a timer. He also says he doesn't like adding a timer to the Bazaar. He doesn't like the idea. So there's no concrete answer here. There's nothing, like, he didn't basically tell me this is what we're doing, or this is how we will do it, or this is what I prefer. He just said timer could work. We don't probably won't do it that way.
There's a lot of ways to shape that feature.
Yeah, so anyway, I'm gonna leave it at this. Again, if you want to watch the full thing, if you want to see the bits that I left out, or learn more about balancing, he talks about recruiting, how you can work for the Bazaar, things like that. Go check it out. I'll leave the links. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I don't know if Reynad will get to see this, probably not, but if you did, hope this was a bit of a better way that I handled it. And thank you for giving the replies and still the community feedback, or giving feedback to the community. Have a good day, and I'll catch you in the next upload.